All in favor of coming out of executive session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, and I want to tell you that when we were in executive session, we discussed the potential options for reconstituting the Development Authority, including creating...
Patsy, I think you should say we asked legal opinions on that. We didn't
Well,
discuss
it was all, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. We had that discussion and received legal advice with regard to the things that were on the agenda and what we said we were going to do. And so there are a couple of options that are out there. There for economic development moving forward, including different, creating different committees and authorities. So we decided, or not, we didn't make any decisions, but we received legal advice with regard to disbanding the Jefferson County Development Authority. We decided, based upon that legal advice, that we're not going to do that. We are going to move forward, and part of the reason for that is because of the bonds that are held by the Development Authority, the agreements that also are in place that were agreed to by the Development Authority. We believe that we want to be sure moving forward that we are in compliance with the law and making appointments to the Development Authority. We want to be sure that we get the required people on the Development Authority that are representative of municipalities, labor, business, and other required members of the authority. And so that's basically what we talked about today. We are going to ask our legal counsel to provide with a report, provide the commission and the public with a report that outlines what the different options are for the Development Authority, as well as other entities related to the Development Authority moving forward. So that's something that we want to do as well.
And part of legal advice and so forth, we realize, or we've all known, that the board is not functional now, the JCDA board. And currently, you may not be aware of this, the commission does require a quarterly report from the JCDA, and it's in our packets quarterly. But I think at this time it's prudent to know more. They don't have enough of a quorum to function as a board. So I'm moving, I'll make the motion that the commission require the Development Authority to present their financial transactions at each commission meeting while the board is functionally incomplete.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Hey, Commissioner Tapp, this is Josh. Hey, can we amend that motion to not only include the financials, but updates regarding significant progress projects?
Yes, of course.
Maybe
Yes.
under executive session, but just updates for commissioners?
Yes, that would be a great addition to the motion.
Okay, so Ralph, do you agree with
I
that?
agree, and amend my second or whatever.
Okay, very good. So we have an amended motion. Jessica, did you get that? All right. Further discussion?
I think it should be pointed out that we did find that they have the people to sign checks, but we do feel it's just better to have an overview of that just to make sure.
We just want to provide another level of transparency so we all know what's going on.
So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Right.
So do you
So
want to make a motion for to have Mr. Kennedy provide a memo
yes,
that's
outlining
for you and the public, outlining the commission's options?
outlining the options. Is that what you? Okay.
Yeah, the options for economic development and the Development Authority, I would say.
So I'll move that we authorize our legal counsel, Mr. Kennedy, to provide a report outlining the options for economic development, moving forward, including the various committees, options for committees that are specific in the West Virginia Code.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So now the next item on the agenda is to discuss the applicant interview and selection process.
I
So-
guess Commissioner Nolan, one thing.
Okay.
President Nolan, are we going to move forward with the appointment of the labor rep on the agenda?
I don't think we are, because we are going to, well, we're going to have a discussion about that, because we had discussed having a second round of questions for those, after we interview everyone, we have to have a second round of, we don't have to, but that's going to be part of the discussion, a second round of interview questions before we make the final appointments.
I'm going to say, I would hope we do make that decision, Dave. We only had 2 people, I think, on the
I'd
list.
like to also. I'd like to make that decision also.
I
mean,
think
the
we just
second
gotta
round
get
essentially
someplace.
Nominates that person because there's only 2 applicants.
What do you think?
That's up to the commission to decide.
Okay,
what
I
the
just,
process is
I
going to
just
be.
didn't want it to be do anything different with that position than we were doing for anyone else's position.
Maybe you should discuss the process that you're going to use, because I don't think that the commission has decided on a process. So you should discuss the process and then go back to the labor representative.
Yeah.
So are we going to, it would be my preference to have a second round, after we interview everyone, to have a second round of interviews, because there are 35 people. We all should be able to submit our top 6 names, as we had decided before, and then have a second round of interviews with questions attached to them before making the final selection.
Well, this second round of interviews, are they oral? Are we going to give them something written like a questionnaire? Or what are you, because I heard the questionnaire suggestion, so I didn't know where we were. Or what is everyone's thinking?
Well, that's what I'm trying to determine,
Right.
what's the preference of the commission?
Well, I think there's even a more basic question than that. In our discussions, and I think when we talked to Mr. Deal, there are certain statutory selections we got to make, but he also had some that he thought they should be, that were not statutory, and I guess we have to make a decision if that's the way we're going to go, or are we just going to open those slots up to just a general selection process. I think we got to decide that first.
The
Yeah,
code
cool.
section has business, industry, and labor, plus the municipal representatives. Their bylaws, the JCDA bylaws have business it adds education to the business, industry, and labor, in addition to the municipal representatives. I just wanted to
Healthcare on
point that
there
out.
also?
Healthcare is
health
not in the bylaws that I see.
I think he had 3 that he wanted.
Yes. And you also decided earlier this year to provide, so prior to last year, at the end of last year, the Board of Education representative was just a liaison, a non-voting member, and you decided to make that representative a voting member. So you've given the Board of Education
And my concern is we're getting to the point, if we follow all that, we're only going to have 1 or 2 slots open,
Well, I think.
for the general public anyway.
Right, and I think if we look at if we evaluate the resumes and applications that we got to see whether there's anyone within those names that would fall within the required selections, the selections that we're required to make, then we could go ahead and make those selections, and then we'll just have to re-advertise for people, for those who don't fall within, we'll have to advertise again.
I'm for fulfilling the requirements of the state code.
Right.
And then looking for people from the public that can have various different backgrounds that would provide different insights into a way to move forward and be progressive. I mean, I don't think we all fit in one mold. You know,
That's right.
I have a farming background, but I'm also an elected official, so what slot would you put me in? You know, we all have different talents.
And I think that's what we have to look at when we're reviewing the applications and the resumes to see what talents they may possess, and they may fall within, there may be somebody that could represent, for example, education and business,
Right.
you know, so.
APU,
And
right there. That's a
exactly.
business. And education.
One thing real quick that we haven't mentioned yet. So we have not finished interviewing applicants that could not stay past midnight, et cetera. So that should be the first order of business.
Right.
Give those individuals that already applied the ability to interview.
Yeah, and we're going to do that. We definitely want to interview everyone that was not able to be interviewed, who chooses to be interviewed from the last time.
Well, why don't we just start on that, you know,
Okay.
set a date to interview remaining applicants. We've got to set it far enough ahead that everybody can get a letter and know the time. And I'm hoping that we could give, you know, make it pretty specific on the time, so you're not just waiting for your name to be called, you know, or,
Did you want to have another
What about
special?
blocks of time? Like your interview is at
yeah, right.
9:45. You have 15 minutes. The next interview starts at 10.
Well,
Did you want to do a special meeting so that you,
I
it's
think we need to
dedicated
do a
just to
special
that?
Meeting,
just to
and
do
have a
this?
list of names in their
Yes.
time slot, and everybody gets 5 minutes. That lets them get up and go sit down, all that. Well, no, 5 minutes isn't enough. I'm thinking of public comment, I'm sorry.
well, we could do, like Josh said, you know, three
Right.
people, you know, we could schedule 3 people between, say, 9:30 and 10. That's 10 minutes a person. That's plenty of time. And, okay, so we would need,
So it's going to take time to get those letters out. So what dates looking forward? We don't have a February calendar out there. I've got my little one. But we've got lots of meetings, too, with budget going on and board. I don't know if it would be timely. I want to move as rapidly as we can, but doing a complete process. I don't know if February 18th is enough time to get the letters out and have anyone work on their schedule. You know that,
That's President's Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
well, many people would not be at work, but we can't convene ourselves, correct? It's a legal holiday. So another suggestion is February 20th, and then any day of the end of the month, the 25th, 26th, 27th, or 28th. But I'd rather do it the sooner the better. And do we want to do evening?
I think evening's better just because people work, but I don't want to go to midnight.
Yeah, I agree. I
well,
agree.
yeah, and we would have to stick to the time schedule.
And I think that this would just be like an interview, as I'm envisioning it, and that's not me.
Yeah, it would only be an interview.
Yeah, so it would be an interview, and people would have specific, you know, this, you know, this group is from whatever time, and you would dedicate just this meeting to that, to those interviews. So it shouldn't, you shouldn't go past.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
At the latest.
I mean,
It's 2
Yeah,
hours.
I just counted on this list 20.
yeah.
So would we do 2 evening meetings?
That's fine with me.
It's okay with me.
If
just
we
have to-
started at 20, yeah. If we started at 6, go to 9 for 2 nights in a row, could we do it with 20 people?
25th and the 26th, that would be,
Yeah, that,
Since I can't the 25th.
you can't be here on
26th, 27th.
I can do that, yeah.
26, 27?
That should be fine for me.
Is that all right? Okay, we'll start at 6 o'clock. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
And hopefully with our great staff can come up with the letters that put people in their time frames, and we get it done by 9 o'clock each night. And then the pumpkins. So,
Okay.
let's see.
So that is, now you've decided that you're completing, that's the completion of the first round of interviews.
Right,
So now you need to decide if you're going to if you are going to have a second round.
right.
You want to do that?
And what process that will entail.
So is it, well, so we would have the second round of interview, not the second round, we would complete the first round of interviews. And then from that first round of interviews, we would have a selection. Each of us choose our top 6 people. And then,
6 or 8, I don't know, we're coming up on others, well, we can't,
Well,
we
we'd
got
have
to
to
advertise for them, we
re-advertise,
can't think about
yeah.
that right now.
yeah, we'd have to re-advertise.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I don't think we have to leave it at a hard and fast number, like you could have 6 or 7, you know, I mean, there may be.
and some people may not have that many.
Right,
I mean, your top selections.
Yeah.
you know,
Right,
people
top
that you-
selections.
Yeah,
Okay.
so up to, let's make it up to
No more than 9.
no more than 9.
Just throwing a number out there, no more.
Okay.
So
And
I'm
then
sure
we
there'll
would
be some
call those-
overlap and stuff, so.
And
Yeah,
then, so
well,
do
that's
we
what we're
want
trying
to,
filter out, yeah.
and then we, do we want to send them their second round of questions? We want those to be in writing? Do we want them to?
I'm going to suggest that we don't do that.
Yeah, I agree with Ralph. Why don't we just have a second in-person
Okay.
interview as if
Okay.
you were interviewing for a job?
Okay.
All right, that's fine. I was just trying to get a feel for what the commission wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, and I'd
Because we
heard a
had talked about
questionnaire
both,
floated
right.
around, so, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
no, I'm fine with in-person too.
Ralph, just to be clear, you're okay with the second round of interviews, you just don't want it to be in writing in person. Am I right?
Person.
You said suggest don't do that, and I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
I just don't think we need to send out
a letter
or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Written, yeah,
I
questionnaire.
think we're getting enough steps as,
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Keep it the same.
Whatever, yeah. Everybody's okay with that.
So, well, we'll get done I'm looking at a timeline, the 26th and 27th, and then,
well,
do we need to,
let me
at
go
our,
back to Stephanie's question to me.
okay.
We pick 6 to 9 people each. Are we going to I guess the question is, do we interview all those people? I just
Oh,
soon
that's
have a
right.
meeting, just an open meeting where the 5 of us just hash out of who we think is, and does that have to be an executive session? Okay.
No, it wouldn't be.
Say it all out.
There may be a few that we all pick, and there may be a few that we all want to argue about.
Yep.
And then we have to ask them, if they're still willing to serve at that point.
Exactly. Okay,
So, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to understand. So, do you want a second round, or do you want to have a meeting where you just hash out who you're going to appoint?
I think we need, the step in between is we exchange our 6 to 9 lists between us all.
Okay.
well, I want to have a second round because I want to see, there are other questions that need to be asked.
I think Patsy, I think you're just dragging it out.
I don't think well, we have some time.
Yeah.
It's not like we're
We
big
can't act
rushing
until the
through.
municipalities are there.
Yeah, we
I
can't
don't have a
really
problem
rush.
with second interview. I mean, it's just like in the business world. You come in for your first, they like you,
Right.
they ask you for a second one.
Yeah, I think we need the second one.
But are you talking, once we hash out and we pick who we think should be on the board, we're going to interview them? Is that what
Well,
we're going?
under the assumption we're not going to have a lot of people. I mean, you think there's
Right.
going to be a lot of overlap. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think completing the first round, each of us picking our top picks from that, sending those people notices or letters that they've been selected for a second round of interview questions. We bring them in and interview, and then we make our selection based upon those interviews. So what's the?
Well, I'm only one voice, so I just think we're dragging.
Well, we are. I mean, but it's not something that we have to do. And we're gonna be,
Because assume we each give 6, that's going to be 30 people we have to interview again.
but they won't all be the same. I'm
I
sure we'll
think they
both.
will be.
I think some of us will select the same people
But
based upon.
we're not going to have a selection. We're just going to give the 6 list, and Stephanie's going to call them for an interview.
That's right. So, and then we'll
And
pick,
I think most of them will be different.
well, they may be, but they may not be. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, why don't we make that determination once we see the names?
Yeah. Because we may have to, we may not come up with the people we may not come up with enough people to fill the slots.
Well, I understand Ralph's concern about the time lag,
I
because
do
that's
too.
what I'm concerned about. But I do think a second interview, it was a long night. I don't know if I can remember each person that was interviewed. I took my notes, but we've got a whole nother round to do. And I think once we get more focused on a final second round selection, that I think I feel I need that to become
I agree.
better acquainted with the applicants.
Yeah, and I've gone back and reviewed the interviews from the first set because it's on the webcast.
Right.
So you can go back and review those if you have any
Right.
questions or you're not sure about something that maybe somebody said or whatever.
That's it. I know we're supposed to ignore that, but I just want to be clear to the people that Kennedy is only giving us the options for, we're not, and his report has nothing to do with doing away with the JCDA.
No, that's right. It doesn't. No.
It just has future options for those type organizations.
You're right. Yeah. So is it the will of the commission then to conduct the second round of interviews? We just have to find, we need to have a date to do that.
Yeah. I would like a second interview.
Yes.
It's 2.
I want a second round.
All right.
So should we vote on that? Or you
I'll concede that there's enough votes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll do the second round of interviews.
And if I get the same 30, if I get 30 names, I'm probably going to come to you in a public meeting and say,
And say,
Sure.
we're just going
Narrow
to
your-
be interviewing 30 people again. I think you need to have some,
Yeah, we
Right.
need to
Yeah.
reduce the number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. Maybe fewer than
yeah.
6 or 9.
I mean, hopefully that won't, we've done a process like this before when we've done appointments for vacant elected positions, and
Right, that's
when we
true.
did that, the commission didn't interview everyone. I think they went through
That's what we
picked
normally
their top,
do.
and there were people who overlapped on commissioners. So if we use that same process, I hope that there would be people who overlap and we wouldn't interview.
Well, and that's why my first suggestion was to look at the resumes and look at the applications and make top picks based upon qualifications from that. But we're here now, so we have to move forward. So the second round of interviews then, I don't think we have to wait too long for the second round.
Want to do it at I'm looking at the wrong calendar.
There's March 7th is the first Thursday in, which would be a quick turnaround and be a little notice for the folks. I mean, we'd have to make
I would say.
our decisions on the 26th and 27th are the interviews. We'd have to get our decisions to you on the 28th, and then that same day or then Friday, send out the letters, and I don't think that's quite enough notice, really. Maybe we need to have another special, well, we're going to do that. With budget meetings and so forth, could we do a,
So what about the Thursday, the 14th? Oh,
I was just going to say
March.
that most people we do contact by email. Their contact information is by email.
okay.
So it's a little more.
So we do have a little-
quickly than sending out.
Well, and they'll be expecting.
Yeah. So typically, if you provide an email to us, that's how Jessica communicates with them.
Okay.
because it's
Okay.
the easiest
All right.
and quickest way.
So why don't we put it on the agenda for the 7th? That,
Now, so if you do that,
I know.
you're gonna have to, so we're
Get
gonna have to
you.
know to put it on the agenda before we publish it. And so you're gonna have to have your picks to us so that Jessica can send out the notification, and she would send it out on Monday, which is, I mean, that's our normal process when we appoint people is to say, on Monday, you have an interview for this Thursday meeting. That's what our policy says.
Well, that
So
gives-
that's
yeah.
the typical amount of notice that we give. If you wanted to give more, you can. I'm just, that's what we do right now for when we don't have,
Well, and
many
can we
people
have that's a daytime session for county commission, could we have an evening meeting again for those interviews?
on the 7th.
Yeah, if those folks work, how can, you know,
Yeah.
you can't always get
Evening
off
best
of
to
work.
the county residents, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll shoot for that then, the 7th.
7th, unless we get a lot of replies that say there's no way I can make it or whatever.
And I guess what you're asking, Stephanie, is that we have our list in there by morning of the 28th.
I think you could do it. It depends on how much notification you want to give to the people you're actually interviewing. So typically, when we appoint for any board, the applications are due by Monday at noon before the meeting that's on Thursday. And then Jessica sends out an email on Monday, contacts people, whatever contact method they've provided, and says you have before the county commission at whatever time it is on the agenda. So that's our normal process, so we'd have to have them by Monday.
Well, really, March
March
1st would be the best, to get to our
Yes,
staff,
Friday.
to
March
give it
1st would,
time,
yes.
and hopefully maybe be able to get it out to the folks on a Friday so they know more what's going on.
And that gives us a couple of days to make our selections, so that should be all right. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll schedule the second round then.
Interviews in the evening of the 7th.
Is that
At 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
All right.
Well, I think it still avoids a question, though, of the statutory one, beside the cities. How are we going to identify those before the second interview?
I think that'll be part of our discussion, of who we want on and what they'll represent. I mean, we've already got somebody for education. I think business is a very broad stroke that could encompass a lot of different people. Labor, we know that's very specific. The municipalities, that's something we need to talk about, but other than that, I don't think there's an absolute requirement for it to fit.
I don't have any problem just making a general recommendation, at least from my list of those, but I want to make sure that I'm assuming they're being considered for more than just one spot.
They could be, not necessarily, but they
Patsy, I
could
don't want to
be.
hear, I want to know they are.
Well, that's something we'll have, I mean, I think
I think
that's
that's
up
a
to,
decision we need to make
that's
today.
up to each person in their selection. I mean, I might choose somebody for the same, for business and education. They could be the same person, but that's my choice. I'm not going to make that choice for you.
Well, that's what I want to make sure, that I'm not having somebody eliminated perfunctory before I even get the list. For say there's 5 open spots.
Well, that's how the selection process works, Ralph.
Well, that's not what you've said. You said somebody has to be from that group at one time.
Well, yeah, but if it can be one person that can fill 2 slots,
Then you're predetermining
we're-
people. That's what I'm asking.
wasn't that what we're doing?
More so than I think necessary.
Well, that's your opinion.
I mean, I believe I understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Lorenzetti, but I thought I had previously said I wanted it to, that I know people can wear many different hats, and I think that will be part of our discussion and final selection each of us says they want this person for this reason, and it could be the reason that they think it fills the business slot. But we also have current members on the board that can also fill those slots. So those are all the different dynamics you have to take in consideration when we make appointments.
Well, I've said mine.
So is everybody clear on what we're doing?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to schedule those meetings for complete the first round, do the second round, and then we also need to talk today about the appointment of the labor representative. So what's the pleasure of the?
Well, we talked a little bit about this before, I think, obtaining municipal candidates. And Stephanie, can you refresh my memory? You've sent out a general letter to the municipalities that we don't have representation from currently.
Yes, that is correct. And we're going to send out, and I have drafted, waiting for Mr. Kennedy to review, a second letter saying, we need your representatives.
Right,
We did
right.
receive correspondence from Bolivar that they have one person, and I believe she's already interviewed, but that they're continuing to seek other people. And I just want to make sure that they're clear on the process, that it doesn't necessarily have to be someone. I mean, it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be someone who's come forward. It could be, they could throw out the mayor's name, one of the council members. So I just want to make sure that they're clear on what the requirements are, but they have sent in a letter saying that they have at least one person who is interested in representing them. And then we'll have not received 3 names from Shepherdstown.
Yeah. So Shepherdstown municipality needs to step up to the plate and give us 3 names.
Any motions on that?
No, I can.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, that's.
The municipal representation on the board is required by state statute. But that is one reason why I asked many of the applicants where they lived, because I want to make sure that it's not all city or municipal representation, that we have general county representatives. So that's another consideration for me in the whole process. So that was one of my questions when I couldn't tell where somebody lived with the candidates.
Mark said he could comment for Shepherdstown if you wanted to hear him. Mark Everhart.
Comment. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
He's a
well,
council member.
do we want to ask you to allow him to speak on behalf of Shepherdstown? That'd be
If you're
fine.
comfortable with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be fine with
There's
me.
no
We got to
objection?
move this
Come on down.
process forward. Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Josh?
I'm fine.
Okay, come on down.
Hi, everyone. I just didn't want you to think that we weren't doing anything. We are aware that we need to fill the spot. We are having trouble finding applicants. We've put out a call for applicants and did not receive any. We think it's important that the person come from within corporate limits because the public at large within the Shepherdstown greater community can apply for the public positions. So we are currently looking for someone, and hopefully we'll have a name to you soon.
Well, you need 3 someones.
3, that's correct, yeah. We are, yeah, and we also feel that, we would like it to be someone from the public, not associated with the council or the government, that, if we cannot find someone as a last resort, we'll appoint someone that's already in an elected position. But we're trying to be as fair as possible and give people a chance to step up and submit. So if anyone from Shepherdstown is interested, please submit
Listening.
your application at Town Hall, and we would love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Mr. Everett, do you have council member? I know you said you'd prefer it to be a citizen, but do you have council members or the mayor or anybody who might be interested in the absence of? Citizen volunteers?
If it comes to that, I think, we would find someone. I can't speak for other council members or the
Okay.
mayor, of
Understand.
their interest, but,
Okay.
we would, if we don't receive any applications, then that's the route that I think we would end up going.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, can we, I think the last thing that was perhaps voting on the labor rep, that was on your agenda item, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that's right. So, are we okay with moving forward to elect the labor representative?
I just make sure yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
I just wanted to check I had Brandon Fisher
Right.
and Dave Dingus.
Yes.
Was there anybody else that I missed?
They were the only two that
those were the
came
only-
forward
yeah.
as labor representatives.
And I should point out, and I assume this is the factor, if we pick one of these two, we can still throw that other person back into the general pool.
Of course.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I'll open nominations for the labor representative. There are already two nominations, Brandon Fisher and David Dingus. So I'll ask, are there any comments before we move to that? All right, so all those in favor of Brandon Fisher signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 2 votes, Josh and Caleb. Those in favor of appointing Dave Dingus to that position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 3 votes. So we have 3 votes for David Dingus. And so we have 1 down. And here we go.
Labor first.
All right, so I think that completes, is there have I missed anything? Is there anything further we have to discuss? Well, that completes the agenda then for
Actually, you got 2
today.
minutes till lunchtime, so what can we fill in?
What can we fill in? What would you like to fill in?
Any leftover public comment?
Are there others who would like to, I'll take a few minutes of public comments before we go to lunch. Before we adjourn, that's right. This is, yes. If you've already spoken, you've already had your chance. So.
Can I ask a clarifying question in the process that you just did?
Okay.
In the interviews, the first interviews of applicants, between now and then, will you be accepting any more applicants? Because that was not clear.
The policy of the county commission is to accept applicants until the positions are filled.
Okay.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
And another question, Charlestown seems to have had a discussion about whether the person has to be on the council. From what I hear from Shepherdstown, they would prefer that the person's not on the council. So I don't know whether you have clarified that with Charlestown.
It's up to it can be a council.
They weren't aware, they were like discussing it amongst themselves, because
They have to decide that.
Yeah, it's up to I'll use Ranson as an example, and actually in the past, Charlestown, they've both always wanted their city managers on there. So so they've had citizens prior to that who don't actually live in their municipal boundaries but are employees. So it is really up to the municipalities to decide who their 3 names are going to be, whether they're elected or whether they're
I apologize.
citizen representatives.
The question wasn't whether they're elected or not, but the question was if the elected person won't be
Still in office.
I
in
understand.
office.
I think Charlestown knows that since historically they've had their city manager, but I'll reach out to them and make sure that they do.
Thank you.
Will the packet for the interview meeting include all the resumes and letters?
Last time.
Of the applicants.
Of the applicants that we're going to interview, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of the questions,
They're still available on our.
well, we won't have to repost them because they're still available on the
Well, except if
website.
you've got an additional application.
Yeah, we'll
Right,
put
right.
anything new.
Additional
We will
ones, of
put in the
course.
packet. Yes,
Yeah.
and if there's anyone who wasn't in the previous packet, we'll put them in the packet.
I'm gonna ask you
So
for you.
that meeting will have just new applicants. The packet will have just the applications of the new applicants.
Yes.
But the old packet is still available. I mean, it's available on our website.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Unless the county, do you want everybody in the packet?
Hey, guys.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you too.
Do you want them in the packet?
Sorry about that.
I don't know. I don't think we need to rescan all of that and put them back in the packet. Available online. Does anyone feel any differently?
You just pulled the whole agenda.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so no,
Applied
we're,
previously.
so the new ones
Yes,
will
we'll put,
be
we always,
in
that's
the
our, that's in our
packet, but the
policy as well.
ones-
If there are any, the applicants have to be available to the public, so if we receive new applicants, they will be in the packet. And we do have one additional applicant who was not already, who was not in the packet, but will be for the special meeting.
Right, that's right. Yes.
Jane, you said that you forgot, and I would have forgotten most of them myself, the applicants that were interviewed, but I was just pointed out by my neighbor here, isn't it all taped, so you could just run the
That's what I
tape?
said.
Yes, and I said I
Yeah.
have my notes, but I mean, I can't
No, not
call
just
them
notes,
all.
isn't this like on tape?
Yeah, it's online.
It's on the webcast. I've gone back and reviewed it
I will
myself
do
since the
my
last
homework,
meeting.
but I just said at
And
this
I'm sure
moment,
we'll all
I
do our
can't remember
homework.
everybody.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so are there any other people that would actually like to make a public comment before we adjourn? All right, then I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.
Not gonna be a happy